Good evening. Welcome to the Monday, August 18th regular meeting of the Edina School Board. We do have a quorum this evening. The first item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. We had a retreat on July 19th, work session on July 21st, a July 21st regular meeting, an August 7th special and closed meeting, as well as an August 11th work session. Had a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve those meeting minutes. Any corrections or additions or deletions from those minutes as written? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes as written, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Superintendent Dressen, can you please walk us through this evening's agenda?
Okay, I will just highlight the meetings that we had since the last regular meeting. Board has been very active through the summer months. It's definitely our next generation strategic plan moving forward, so they did have a work session on the 21st. I had a retreat, I should say, on the 19th, and it was a lot around the planning and communications, decision-making. The work session on the 21st was, again, taking a look at some of our strategic initiatives, especially as it relates to facilities and learning more about the response from a community survey, as well as some financial assessments by our financial planners. At the August 7th special meeting, the board did meet in a closed session as dealing with administrative negotiations. The work session on the 11th, again, was a training session with consultant Dennis Cheeseborough, helping the board take a look at decision-making and shaping up some of the studies that we've got going forward in the upcoming school year. With that in mind, the reports on the evening are going to be the All for All initiative, which is our work around ensuring that we're closing the opportunity and access gap for all learners. I'll provide a brief leadership update on some of the latest happenings in the district with that. Consent agenda items are quite routine. We have a membership to the Minnesota State High School League, a field trip, gifts once again from our generous community. The action items of the board will be approving the leadership action plan for the upcoming year, as well as the school board agenda that aligns with that action plan. My agreement is being brought to the board for an extension of a 3-year agreement. We do have the EAC, which is the Edina Administrative Council Agreement. We are going to pull that agenda item, item D, under the action items will be pulled at this time. We just want to get some clarification that we're there, but I don't think we're ready for board to take action on it tonight. There's no big surprises in this, but just we have some language things that we have to just get cleaned up a little bit. So we're going to ask the board not to pull that item. Teacher evaluation, we have a minor change with the MOU with our teacher evaluation. That's taking off. We're going to be requesting an increase with substitute teacher rates. Our facility advisory task force, we'll learn more about that. But that's a new task force that's beginning next week in the school district. And then we have some policies to address, including the bully prohibition. Board will be approving some committee and council placements. It's our first run at that. We'll continue to have probably some additions as we get those committees and councils finalized. And then there's a variety of policies that we're moving forward and around the 700 series, which is our non-instructional business services items. We have some information items, and that would conclude the board agenda for August 18th.
Thank you, Rick. At this time, can I get a motion to remove the EAC agreement from tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of updating the agenda, which would exclude item D from our agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next up, we're on to our, any members of the audience that wish to speak tonight? Last chance? Anybody? We're on to our All for All initiative.
Chad Schmidt is our Director of Research and Evaluation, is one of the primary facilitators along with Mary Manderfield and Randy Smazel. Penny Kodrich, who is our former Student Support Service Director, also is quite engaged with this initiative, and they're here to give us a report back on our work around this initiative. We welcome them.
Mary, you have a new accessory. What happened? Poor thing.
She's a little competitive.
Good evening, School Board and Superintendent Dressen and the Edina community. We are privileged to be here to share with you an update on the All for All plan. Thank you for giving us that opportunity. I'm here with Randy and Mary, as Rick had introduced us, and we work on this project together. So we'll be giving the presentation together as well. So we'll be sharing, talking about the various slides that are here. So this update about the All for All plan comes off of, you saw the plan and recommendations back in April of 2013. So those recommendations have been moving forward in the 13-14 school year, and so we're giving you an update on the actions that have moved forward relative to those recommendations and what we see progressing forward in 2014-2015. I want to remind you that this plan was brought together with a group of stakeholders doing some research, some literature reviews, some study of various programs, and brought it together under 5 gap areas. So there are 5 gaps in the presentation tonight, titled the belief gap, leadership gap, preparation gap, teaching and learning gap, and finally the time gap. And so with our work in researching to prepare the plan, that was a structure that we brought together based in part on a report that we read that we thought made some sense for us. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mary, who's going to start talking about the belief gap.
Good evening, Superintendent Dressen and school board members. The belief gap, the recommendation was approved by the school board, which was to train and educate all staff in supporting academic achievement for all learners from diverse cultures, incomes, and ability levels. Some of the action steps that were taken is last year there were between 35 and 40 staff members, teaching staff, clerical staff, Edina community ed staff that were trained 40 plus hours with Dr. Heather Hackman in equity training, with the goal being that training teams would be formed, and in 14-15 we would provide a 4-hour introductory training for all new staff that was hired. Last Thursday, we did provide that first round of training for all new teaching and administrative staff and all paraprofessionals. So by the end of this school year, every new employee to Edina School, regardless of their bargaining position, will have been given this 4-hour introductory equity training as a starting point. In addition to that, school improvement goals for both 13, 14, and beyond all have an equity focus in those. So it says 13, 14, but our expectation is that that will happen in 14, 15, 15, 16, and beyond. Finally, we are developing a 3 to 4 year phased-in training model. That framework is being developed, which will include expectations of every staff member on what we expect of them in regards to racial equity and cultural competency. The next part of the belief gap is identifying and clarifying beliefs about learning expectations for each and every student. The pathway to success indicators, we are determining college and career readiness by using MAP scores, which is measurement of academic progress, the Explore test, which is given to all 8th grade students, and the PLAN test, which is given to all 10th grade students, and how it correlates to the ACT test. So we can look at how somebody performed on MAP testing, Explore testing, or the PLAN test, and almost predict what kind of ACT score they're going to get. A second item is a communications tool. So in our effort to advance our All for All work and truly engage our non-English speaking families, we are in the process of having a resource for documentation translations. So example, welcome center or student enrollment packages, program information, district frequently asked questions, but we're also working on ways to help families engage in Edina and understand Edina Public Schools through videos and perhaps an online portal. In addition, the school board adopted the racial equity position statement in June. We also have in the teacher evaluation system, which is a brand new model for this coming school year, we have rubrics that are aligned to equity and really to meeting all for every student.
Good evening. I thought Mary did quite well even with the cast and the mic, so that's a great job, Mary. In terms of the leadership gap, one of the things that we looked at is, as leaders across the organization, what are the systemic elements of education that we want to be sure are solidly in place? So this recommendation around implementing a pre-K-12 response to instruction intervention framework with fidelity is one of those systemic structures, often called RTI. It really is about making sure that there are interventions in place for students who are challenged with the pace in the bulk of the classroom, or for students in which that pace is not rapid enough for where they're at as learners. So it's for both groups of students. And our first step in looking at this recommendation was to conduct a district audit, which we did last year in the fall, and look at where are we at as a system, where are we at as a school district, what does our intervention structure look like, where are we strong, where are we challenged, and where's our areas for continuous improvement and growth. In terms of district building support positions at the elementary level, we now have positions in place for learning specialists in reading and in math. We also have specialists in place for GT around math and language arts support. We know that one of our challenges is to develop greater consistency in our math, reading, and specifically behavior interventions district-wide, and that is an opportunity for growth in this work, and so that's ongoing work for us. We also participated in an audit through Minnesota Department of Education of our ADSIS grant. ADSIS is Alternative Delivery of Specialized Instructional Services. It's a Minnesota grant. Brings in numerous resources for us as a school district to help support and finance staff that can provide this intervention structure and also assist in paying for curricular materials for those students. And as part of that MDE audit around ADSIS, as they reviewed the Edina program, they were very satisfied with our audit. In fact, we were very encouraged by their reference to Edina as being a resource model for other districts in how to assemble an ADSIS grant and be accountable to the elements of it. Another leadership aspect is always recruiting, hiring, retaining high-quality staff who are racially conscious teachers and administrators and meet the needs of all students, a diverse group of students that we have here in Edina. So we reviewed, as part of our actions, our interview questions that we use to do screening for staff and also in terms of the interview process. And we revisited those. In terms of mentoring and training of new teachers, we included a 4-hour equity training this year, which Mary and her team led, and it was very well received by our new staff. And we did evaluations on that training as well. And then, as Mary mentioned, calibrating our teacher observation system and common look-fors. So our primary method of feedback to our teaching staff in the Edina Public School System is our teacher evaluation framework. And so in that teacher evaluation framework is the opportunity to provide feedback and growth around our teachers around meeting the needs of kids. Our last action is to implement the intercultural developmental inventory, and that IDI assessment is really an assessment of intercultural competence, and several of us piloted the IDI on lead team last year, and our plans are to use that with all of the administrators, our district leadership, and our teaching and learning specialists this year. And what that instrument really does is it provides an opportunity for reflection and growth and development around our own intercultural competence. So those are some of the ways that we are attacking that leadership gap as part of this plan. I'll turn it back to Chad.
Randy, can you just give a couple examples of when you're talking about our teacher observations and common look-fors? What are you looking for there to help our staff with this?
So we might be looking for how teachers are engaging students and which students in the classroom are engaged as part of that observation. We might be looking at the kinds of materials that teachers are using and do they represent the diversity of students that they have in the classroom. We might be looking at the assessment designs and do the assessment have the teams who create the assessments work to make them free of biases that we know that we have as educators. And so whether it's through the feedback on the assessment design, feedback on the lesson design, the curriculum materials that are used, or actually the interactions that are occurring in the classroom. Those would be 3 examples of where we would dial in and try and provide feedback for growth and opportunity there.
Thanks.
So the preparation gap has 3 specific recommendations in it, and what I hope is fairly transparent is this is not the work of Mary and Randy and Chad. What you're hearing tonight is us giving a report on all the work that's been done across the system, so there's many people that are involved in it. And specifically around the preparation gap, our early childhood special ed coordinator, Lisa Hawthorne, and our early childhood family ed coordinator, Lori Dunn, have done lots of work in this area. So the first recommendation in this gap area is implementing a screening tool that assesses developmental milestones and social emotional development for infants and toddlers. So one of the things they've worked on this year is clarifying the role and purpose of screening and the results that we're achieving with the preschool screening that we do now. Some of the research coming out of the University of Minnesota is that screening earlier is better. And that's part of what we were moving towards initially anyways. And so Lisa and Lori are working with community members and encouraging families to bring children in around age 3 as opposed to waiting till 3.5 to 4. So that gives us a little more time around helping identify developmental milestones and where students and or families might need some support or additional learning opportunities that can be provided at an earlier age. Working with Steve Buettner and District Media Technology Services to assign student identification numbers to all children. So we know who our incoming students can be at a very early age, and we know how to be able to get in contact with their families and help provide information about the services that we offer in Edina schools. Defining developmental milestones and agreeing on a standard definition for school readiness. So that's some of the work that Lori and Lisa see going forward in this year, is getting clear about that. And then again, as I mentioned earlier, start screening and encourage screening to happen prior to 3.5 years old, back towards 3 years old.
Chad, can I just ask, do we have a plan or a way that we can partner with the many high-quality preschool programs here who, I started at 2, my kids were there at 2. If there was a way to partner with that might be a good way to get to the kids early and to maybe save some money on screening if they're already doing some of that for us.
That's a great question, Lisa. And so just to be clear, that's not a planted question. You'll find that in the next slide or
sorry.
2 that we talk a little bit about the partnership work. So I'm going to hold off on answering that directly and see if that slide helps take care of it.
Yeah.
So the second recommendation is around outreach to parents and families with a focus on race, low socioeconomic status, and cultural diversity. So creating comprehensive communications tools. And so working with our communications department, Susan Brott, a kindergarten newsletter was developed this spring of this school year and has been ongoing, I think 6 months to kindergarten was the initial one, and then each month since then. Highlighting resources of early childhood programs as well as helping families get ready for their student transitioning to kindergarten. The early childhood programs have implemented individual parent education sessions, and one of the challenges was getting beyond the 8 to 4. So sessions are available for some families, but not all, when it's done just during the daytime hours. And so working on providing flexible hours and work around supporting parenting skills. And then coming this year, a licensed parent educator will be in the city gym, I believe it's every Thursday evening, as a drop-in resource for families and children.
And will you be utilizing our current parent educators in our ECFE program to do some of this work?
So that's a question I'd probably have to defer to Lori and Lisa around, but I believe that's true, that is some of the resources that we have internally that will be activated for that. All right, and then the third goal area. Yeah.
Can you explain the licensed parent educator in the city gym? Is that going to be sort of an open session that parents can show up at, or how is that structured? I'm just not
So
clear.
yes, that's my understanding. So number one, a communication to say to families that we have somebody available during the evening hours, and it will happen to be at this day and time. And so you're welcome to drop by any week and to potentially have some one-on-one conversations. I would so I don't know this, but I think some of it would be planned activities as well. So as opposed to a scheduled class or a scheduled meeting session, drop in more flexible. Families could come and go as they see throughout the weeks.
So not necessarily like a one-on-one like we offer.
Right.
This would be more of a group.
Right. And it would, it could be one-on-one if only one family shows up.
Well,
But
yeah, we might
in
get
general,
lucky.
yes, some flexibility around that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And then the third one is around coherent and comprehensive preschool program encompassing all early childhood services and programs that align with K-5. So some of this is helping coordinate and connect efforts between early childhood special ed and early childhood family ed under the umbrella of early childhood. So some of the work that's been happening this year is, last year, special education teachers were participating in regular ECFE classes. And so that is a push-in model, providing support for families and children in a regular ed setting, as opposed to a pull-out model. These two programs have integrated their equity team and integrated their school improvement team. So they are, as adults, starting to blend some of the work together and having conversations. And then they've also done some in-service training work across the programs as well. So they are doing, they're bringing all the early childhood educators together and doing some common learning. All right, and then to Lisa's question, so they've partnered with community daycare and preschool providers. So they met earlier this summer, and the intent is to meet quarterly in 2014-15. So to keep the conversations going and to keep the dialogue going about how can we work together to best meet the needs of the children in our community.
Do you know if this is at all similar to the EPI committee that we had at one time, the Edina Partners in Early Education? I know that committee kind of died.
So I saw you kind of look back at my partner Val back there. Do you?
Yes, it's a reincarnation, so to speak.
It is, okay.
We had, myself and Jeff Jorgensen from Special Services, we met with them for an initial meeting about what their needs and wants were and agreed upon some goals moving forward. We'll be meeting regularly.
So
Share our expertise and our transition goals to kindergarten with all the early education providers in the area.
Excellent.
So just to verify, Val Burke, our Director of
Oh.
Community
Just
Services, verified that indeed is a reincarnation, as she said,
Yeah,
of that plan. And, part of the BG5 study implementation team will be growing this as well, so this is all complemented.
And so then the last action that will be taking place in 14-15 is doing some more on-site home visits to families and using a program called Helping Us Grow to make that happen. All right, so with that, I'm going to turn it to Randy for the teaching and learning gap.
Thank you, Jan. We know that the number one school factor that affects student achievement is the quality of the instructor in the classroom. We also know from research that the best way to systemically improve the quality of the teacher in the classroom is to organize them into Java-like collaborative teams or professional learning communities. The focus of the professional learning community is for staff to focus on learning versus teaching. In other words, it doesn't matter necessarily what you taught if the students didn't learn it, so a focus on learning. To grow that collaborative culture, similar to very respectable medical organizations where you get a team of doctors if you're going in to be diagnosed, we want our students to get a team of teachers to diagnose their educational needs, and then a focus on results to be oriented around continuous improvement. So those three big ideas in professional learning communities. So the actions that we have taken, reflecting back to last year, training for principals and teachers, we offered in August of last year a 2-day PLC hybrid with Solution Tree conference, and we had 90 participants that participated in that. It was some baseline training and the big ideas around professional learning communities and how you grow a collaborative culture. We also have had numerous staff attend the PLC training here in Minneapolis over the last few years, and just as an example, over half the staff now at the high school have been trained formally in professional learning communities and the benefits to students of those organizational groups. We've been developing protocols for our corollary questions, which are part of this focus on learning versus teaching. And the way that we continue to provide professional learning opportunities for staff around that is by offering that professional learning in an anytime, anywhere fashion. So we have a PLC Moodle page, and on that PLC Moodle page, we offer professional learning opportunities around PLCs. And so it's online, it can be personalized for the needs of staff, and they can access it anytime. And we use it at the beginning of the year, we use it on some of our in-service days and in between. In terms of embedded time for collaboration, we are looking for an hour per week. That's the goal, that Java-like staff are able to meet for an hour per week. We also have late starts that support collaboration time. We have collaborative Wednesdays at the high school that support collaboration time. We are finalizing power standards and common summative assessments. We've started that work. We'll continue that work this year. Many are working on that tomorrow as part of our in-service day in the afternoon. We track and are tracking every course, every content area, and whether or not we've come to consensus on what the big ideas for that course or content area are, and if we've come to consensus on what it looks like when students arrive at those big ideas. Because that element of education is called a guaranteed viable curriculum, and that's another heavily research-supported element to having a quality educational system. And then in terms of PLC leadership and training and support this year, we're continuing to offer training with our administrators on a 5 to 6 times a year basis, where our staff development committee will now become this professional development PLC committee. We'll have monthly building meetings, and then every Java Lake PLC team across the district will be aligned to a liaison, either a teacher on special assignment or an administrator, to continually ask them, what are your SMART goals? What are your action plans? What professional learning needs do you have? How can we support you on your journey? And checking in with them 4 to 5 times a year. So that's a support structure through teaching and learning and through Mary and Chad's work that we're putting in place this year.
Randy, can you
Yes.
just give an example for the audience and ourselves? What does a power standard look like? What is, so that this common summative assessment can be developed? I mean, you can even give it, at a, really basic level, like first grade math or something.
Sure. So I'll go science on you.
Great.
So in life science, a power standard would be that all living things are made up of cells, and cells form the basic structure of all living things. That's like a core element of understanding many concepts in life science, and we would want our students to understand how that structure supports life in living systems. So that's a really big idea in life science that we would hope would be one of our power standards. So the power standards are really, what are those key big ideas that give kids, or that offer endurance? Kids take them with long after they've been in the course or the grade level, that offer them leverage, that help them with other content areas that they're studying. So a math power standard around fractions may help them in other areas that they're studying, whether it is in facts or whether it is in science or maybe some other areas. A power standard also has a criteria around readiness, in that it helps them for the next level that they're entering into. So our teaching staff are looking at endurance, leverage, readiness as criteria to determine what are the big ideas that we want kids to leave this course or this grade level having mastered. And those would be defined as the power standards.
Thank you.
So our final recommendation around teaching and learning is to really continue to grow student engagement to enhance ownership of the learning. We know from the work of Daniel Pink how that increases motivation for students. We want our students to be lifelong engaged learners. And so actively teaching students skills for being and staying engaged in the learning. Last year we did some pilots, one at Southview Middle School around type, which is about what personality or type are you, and how does that impact the way in which you learn. And so helping kids better understand themselves as learners has been very beneficial. And also at Valley View Middle School, we did a pilot called Ramp Up to Readiness, which is about building the skill sets that are going to give you leverage in many of the other classes that you're going to take along your academic pathway. So helping kids learn what do they need to advocate for themselves as learners, and helping them learn what are the things that affect how I learn and how do I like to learn best. Collaborative teams looking to collect student feedback on learner engagement, so that's something we'll continue to grow, because as part of the teacher evaluation system, our teachers need to collect long-term data on student engagement. And defining personalized learning pathways using educational competencies. The competencies are about the outcomes. And so our work around this is to clarify the outcomes, to know our learners very, very well, to help them find their path, to provide feedback on where they're at on the destination to that end result. And that's our direction. It's personalized, and it is more engaging to students. And with that, I'll turn it to Mary.
Randy, can I interrupt one?
I'm sorry.
Can you talk a little bit about in where in what class or how would we do the feedback or the getting the, learning, keeping engaged? Is that during an advisory in a secondary, or is that, so for parents know where we would be doing that?
So in both places are opportunities to do that. So in advisory, it's the opportunity to get to know the learners better and to provide feedback on what they're doing that's successful in the school, what skills do they have that are strengths of theirs, and where do they have challenges so that they can become better advocates for themselves as learners. So in the advisory period in our middle schools, that's an opportunity to get that kind of feedback. But also there are opportunities in their courses to get that kind of interaction feedback with their teachers as well.
The time gap. More time for learning during the school day, outside the school day, during the school year, and beyond the school year. This one, I think we really got some great traction around. At our elementaries, at 3 of our elementary schools, Countryside, Creek Valley, and Cornelia, we had an after-school homework help where we had one-on-one, either high school students, community residents, volunteer, and work one-on-one with students 1 day a week after school. That program will be replicated this coming year in all 6 elementary schools. We also have homework help after school in both middle schools and the high school. The second one was implementing our Saturday school. Last fall, we asked the Edina Ed Fund for a grant to start Saturday school, and they were kind enough to give us a startup grant. We then got some additional money from an organization called Edina Give and Go. And beginning in early January, we had anywhere from 45 to 65 students come every Saturday from the first week of January to the 1st of May from 8:30 to 11:30 for some additional math help, some additional reading help. We had licensed teachers involved. We had, again, residents who volunteered. We had students volunteering as part of the high school. Student council volunteered. Student council also contributed money for snacks for the students. So during that period of time, not only did we provide the transportation, which I think made a big difference, we were able to provide some additional support both in math and reading, and include a midday snack for the students. It was well received. We are going to begin it this fall in September, and we'll do kind of a fall and a winter version of Saturday school. The enrichment this summer, so we had an opportunity to, both from Edina Community Ed and from, again, Edina Give and Go, we had about 40 students that we were able to give 2 weeks of some type of enrichment through Edina Community Ed. Again, we provided transportation, students were selected, we had companies that donated funding for lunch, so lunch was provided right here for the students. We had a number of students who volunteered and served as mentors in that program, building great relationships with those students, and it provided these 40 plus students an opportunity to do some type of enrichment summer activity that they might not have had. And that really had a lot to do with community ed, both Val Burke as the director and Carrie Cabe, who did a lot of work providing those scholarships. In addition to that, there are many other scholarships that are given throughout the year for students. All of those are planned to continue in 14-15, and our hope is actually that the summer of enrichment we can expand maybe to a longer period of time and really for more students.
I think these probably are very valuable. Inherently, I believe they're valuable programs. So then what types of things are you doing to look at outcomes to see that we're really moving the education, narrowing that gap and really supporting those kids to reach the competencies that we want them to reach?
Yep. Yeah, so I say that is a very good question. So the first piece was Saturday school. Because of when we started, we probably didn't do as good a job of measuring each student's progress. So one of the things that we are looking at, we've got an early jumper ready for this coming fall. A team of people, including some teachers, have met to say, once we identify the students we're going to invite, how do we make sure that there's a mechanism in place to target what help they might need in math, what help they might need in reading, and yet understand if we're going to have a student here for 3 hours on a Saturday, there also has to be something about it that's going to make it fun for the student and want them to come back. And so your point is well taken. If we're here next year, I should be able to give some pretty strong evidence of what difference it's made for students.
Academically and also engagement, because I think that's very important, because sometimes it's keeping a kid engaged, not just, it's important to get the better grade, but it's also important to keep them engaged in school, so.
And I do think to that point, we did, the engagement piece we did really well, or we wouldn't have kids coming
Coming every
over and over on a Saturday morning for 3 hours if they weren't feeling the engagement. Now the next piece is we really do need to be able to measure how we are helping them move academically.
So our last recommendation to report on is the utilization of technology to extend student opportunities to learn. So last year we continued to grow our eAcademy efforts, record and upload Edina teachers' lessons. So this is a digital database where collaboratively teachers can share quality lessons and then utilize those. Opportunities for students and families to check out technology resources. So last year again, an opportunity for students primarily in secondary grades to check out devices if they needed to. And we also have a partnership with Edina Give and Go to provide cellular internet service for families of need regarding internet access. The expansion of BYOD 612, a lot of conversation about that last year. We've had the Get Connected Day earlier this week, and a lot of families participating in that. This will be our first year of this 612 BYOD, and in 5th grade we are rolling out Chromebooks across the system. So again, providing access to learning opportunities in a way that is anytime, anywhere. And lastly, this digital curriculum collaborative partnership. So MPCC, Minnesota Partnership for Collaborative Curriculum, is really a partnership of numerous districts across the state of Minnesota saying, if we have the same state standards and we have the same outcomes, let's work together to design digital curriculum and support each other by putting all of our efforts together. So over time, this will save districts hundreds of thousands of dollars in textbook costs. And we now have actually over 150 school districts across the state of Minnesota who have partnered on this. The goal is still 40 plus digital courses by fall of 2014-15, and we should be hitting that mark. So lots of digital content being produced through this partnership, so that's very exciting. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Chad to close.
Randy, can I just
Yes.
ask a question? Does the district own the digital content?
So the collaboration owns the digital content. We pay a participation fee of $1 per student, and so the collaboration owns it as it's being developed. But as soon as that course or grade level content is developed, we download it, and now the district has a copy of that, and we can tweak it, we can modify it, and then it becomes ours.
And then also when the teachers, like I remember Mr. Hoffman spoke earlier in the year about his flipped lessons and how popular they were. Do we have continued access to those after the class is over, and do we have plans for taking advantage of those types of materials?
Yes, so part of the intellectual property rights is defined by how and when that content was created and whether or not it was used in Edina Public Schools. So when teachers are paid to develop lessons and teach classes, that's Edina curriculum and Edina content. If teachers are developing content separately from the school district and are not using that in the school district, they would own the intellectual property rights of that, and it would just follow with them wherever they go. But most of our teachers are developing it so they can use it here, and so it becomes Edina curriculum, and then we retain the intellectual property rights to that.
And do we have like any kind of a methodology for keeping track of what we have and how to make best use of it, and what's the best quality of it?
So that's a great question. I think that's part of our continuous improvement around that. But we do know exactly what we use in all of our Moodle courses. Moodle is a common format that we use for digital curriculum. So we have all of that digital curriculum on our own servers here in Edina.
Thank you.
So that wraps up our update on the All for All overall plan. You can see it's a broad plan. It brings together the work of many departments across the whole entire district. And you've been able to ask questions along the way. Do you have any other final questions that you'd like to address to us before we close?
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, Superintendent Dressen will provide us a leadership update.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and board members, as well as community members. Our date is August 18th, and a week from now, our students will be entering the classrooms ready for a great year of learning, knowing that they will be also getting out before the end of May. We are excited about our plans, and we'll continue to focus our work on our strategic efforts at a district level, but this also is being embedded into the sites and into the classrooms. Our 3 areas of focus, and you heard a lot about it just with the previous report, is around personalized learning for all students. So those 8,491 students that we are expecting to show up on that first day, we have some new strategic plans and how we're going to enhance our special education and our technology work. Those are both presented to the board last spring, and now we're moving to implementation. We are bringing our learning devices through e-learning squared alive at a very high level. This is at our secondary schools. It's been something we've been piloting and exploring, and now we're advancing very quickly into that. The All for All initiative, just heard the report on today, will be going into another year of its work, and we expect some great things to happen, and are optimistic that the purposefulness of this work will be of benefit to all of our students. In the second area around just making sure this birth through age 85 plus continues to be seamless, we have plans moving forward with the birth through grade 5 in the secondary study. The community education will begin their work. We have a district equity plan in place that we're continuing to advance to help support the all learner efforts and our major facility study. And we have a task force that we'll learn more about a little bit later in this presentation, but really addressing how space can enhance our learning. And the final area of our strategic plan is the partnership work. And so the improvements and the enhancements with our teacher evaluation or appraisal process, as well as the use of the professional learning communities, coined PLCs by the district, will all be important pieces of this partnership and this collaborative work. We are also studying our staffing model and saying how does our staffing align to the learning, and that will be a study that occurs with recommendations to be phased in over a period of time. Also looking at how we can support our staff in better ways given all the change going on. And so we have a committee called Next Generation Advisory Team that will help support that work. But these will be our major work occurring not only at the district level but at the site level as we move into the new school year. Just some updates on leadership. Tony Gardner started today, our Human Resource Manager. We have been working successfully in the Human Resource Department without that position, and we're glad Tony's joining us. Mike Pertasky has become the new high school assistant principal. Previously, Mike was the dean at the high school. With that position is going to be interviewed later this week, and we hope to have that person in place very early on during the school year. I want to remind the board of a pretty unique thing that we're exploring and moving forward on. I should say we've committed to is West Side School District, which is a district similar to Edina out of Omaha, will be coming north to Edina for spending some time September 17th through the 19th, where they'll be touring our buildings, having some dialogue and conversation. We see the two districts quite similar in our strategic work and our size and some of the challenges and opportunities we have, and so it made some good sense to have some governance dialogue. And we look forward to having that evolve over the next weeks. And finally, the 21st Century Benchmark Consortium. This is a school district, the school districts in the United States that benchmark closely with Edina, New Trier, Highland Park, Palo Alto, Eanes out of Texas, West Side out of Omaha, and now Hanover outside of Connecticut, or outside of where Dartmouth is in Connecticut. Those are all benchmark schools, but they'll be sending representatives to Edina, where they'll be coming in, touring our buildings, but then having our time of learning, and again, benchmarking, so we have, again, a good feel of how Edina is moving on a national level. We are moving forward with the Facility Advisory Task Force. I'm going to ask Susan Brott to provide an overview to the board. This is action the board will be taking on later tonight.
So we have the Facilities Advisory Task Force. Later on, you will have the list of members that we've identified. There's 23 members total. Plus, actually, there's 23, not 26. 23 members total that we've identified, representing a wide span of voices in the district, from parents to alumni to current students. We have some teachers. We have alumni parents, if you'd like to call them that. We also have just community members at large, some coming with backgrounds in architecture, engineering, technology, safety and security, representing the voices of athletics and activities, preschool families. So we've got a really great variety of voices that will be coming to the table. The purpose will be obviously to analyze and consider options that we have for our next gen spaces that align with the next gen strategic plan. So really starting off next week, going over a lot of the programming aspects of the next generation, as we've been talking for a long time, that learning is our constant, and that our other resources, including space, are the variables and things that we need to align to learning. So we will be starting off next week going over a lot of next generation meetings or plans that way. The challenges obviously that we know going forward that we have aging buildings. We have some capacity issues in some of our schools. Safety and security was identified in a community survey as being a concern, obviously, with the age of our buildings, that they were created in a time that was different than the needs that our community is expecting now with schools. And then obviously what are changing programming needs. Maybe it's not always just one hallway with a bunch of classrooms on either side where the doors closed and they never talk to each other. So it's going to be an interesting meeting. They're starting next week on the 26th is the first one. It'll continue for 6 weeks on Tuesday evenings at 6:30, right next door in room 350 here at the community center. At 6:30, they are open meetings to the public. So while the task force is the one that will be discussing and processing information and going through exercises to help prioritize what our needs are, eventually coming to consensus to bring a recommendation to the board in early October, they are open. Anyone in the public is invited to come. We'll have opportunities during those meetings for attendance, people in the audience to also participate in some various activities as well.
Susan, can I ask if people aren't able to attend the meetings, but they want to hear what had happened at a meeting, how might they find out?
Yes, thank you. We're going to have a section on the website that's going to be devoted just to the Facilities Advisory Task Force, so we'll have a link off the homepage to that. Actually, I don't know the URL off the top of my head, but it's like FATF, edinaschools.org/FATF or something brilliant like that. But we'll be documenting not only who the members are, what the meeting agendas and the minutes from the meeting, and then some additional resource materials. We might not put all of the resource materials on there because there'll be quite a bit, but we'll be trying to at least capture some really good minutes for the public to understand and track along. Thank you.
Susan, you said the meetings start at 6:30. How late do they go?
They'll be about 2 hours in length, hopefully. So
Okay.
6:30 to 8:30, starting
So-
on the 26th.
So if anyone's looking at that slide
Sorry,
that
it
says
says 8
6:30 to 8.
o'clock, We realized that when we originally put it at 8 o'clock, that was probably a little ambitious to try to get everything done in an hour and a half. So we're
Just in
counting
case.
on a 2-hour meeting. Thank you.
Additional questions?
As we move into the new school year, our theme is going to be around bringing hope and happiness to our future. There's quite a bit of research right now just on well-being and the importance that hope plays with that, and the feeling of happiness. While these are light words, they're very powerful in the area of research, and we're going to continue to grow that for our students and our staff going forward. Preschool workshop begins tomorrow, the official kickoff, but there certainly has been a lot of learning going on for the majority of August. Our new teachers were on board all of last week. We have our staff in the buildings this week. Some of the new work that we're working on during the preschool workshop will be on the revised teacher appraisal plan, advancing the professional learning communities and team building, and then just getting ready for the school year and getting everything ready to go for that first day of August 25th. And that concludes the kind of leadership update. Are there general questions of me or of the lead team members present tonight?
Additional questions? Seeing none, thank you, Rick.
It's hard to believe it's only 4 days away.
There it is.
Next up is our consent agenda. Need a motion to approve.
So moved?
Second?
Moved and seconded to approve this evening's consent agenda. Rick, any items you'd like to point out? I know you've gone through it briefly once.
Our consent agenda items are personnel recommendations, again, standard. They're quite full because, again, it's that hiring time of the year. Our expenditures payable for July 22nd and August 18th, the membership, the field trips, and the gifts. That would conclude the consent agenda items for tonight.
Thank you, Rick. Any items anybody would like removed from the consent agenda? Any questions, comments, or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Our first action item this evening is our leadership action plan, which we've seen a number of times previously. Can I have a motion to bring that to the floor?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the 2014-15 Edina Public Schools Leadership Action Plan. Any discussion? Comments, questions? Rick?
Just kind of briefly reviewed them. Again, it's the role of the lead team to implement these plans. We'll have periodic updates through our board agendas, which are the next action items, so that items that need to come back to the board for reports or action is brought forward in a timely fashion.
Thanks, Rick. Questions, comments?
I thought the things that you shared with us, Rick, about those additional 3 columns was interesting and will be helpful, I'm assuming, to not only the board, but to the lead team as well.
Yes, in our work session, we talked a little bit about this plan, and the other columns that our administration is responsible for carrying out is we do set kind of targeted outcomes for where this progress will be at the end of first semester, where the progress will be at the end of the second semester. We also try to identify what exits are going to occur because we're advancing this work. And so it's all part of our strategic plan that it's a model we've been using, and it's a management tool that we use at our leadership level, and then that drives us back into the action here at the board.
Thank you, Rick. Additional questions? Comments? Those in favor of approving the Leadership Action Plan for 14-15 as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next up is our school board agenda for the 14-15 school year. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded.
At any time.
We did talk about adding an additional September workshop, and I think that is in motion already. Any additional discussion or questions regarding the current agenda schedule?
And this is always a moving, a living document in that we often add things to it.
The living document, and the chair and the superintendent are the 2 people responsible to make sure things don't fall off the map, as we say. But this is this is a best guess of the timing of the various projects, or various agenda items, I should say.
Additional questions or comments? All those in favor of approving the current version of the school board agenda for 14-15 as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next up, we have the superintendent's agreement for school years 15-16, 16-17, and 17-18. Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Been a long evening already.
We're a little slow there tonight, aren't we?
Little bit of background. We're very pleased to extend Dr. Dressen's employment. His current agreement runs through the end of this school year, so the 14-15. And this extends it through 17-18 with the same base pay. Under this agreement, we have increased his bonus amount from $3,000 to to up to $10,000 per year.
9,000, I believe,
9,000.
not 10.
I think must have missed that one. Any other input, feedback, discussion? We're very pleased to have Rick hanging around with us for a while longer.
And this does supersede the current contract that we were working under. This is just trying to explain that it goes
It's
over the time period of the current one that we're working on, and so this is a new
No, it's an
one.
extension of the current one.
Right, sorry.
Yeah, it's for a new time period, though.
Right.
Current one ends July 2015, this one kicks in July.
Thank you, sorry. Mine.
Additional discussion, comments? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Rick. Pleased to have you. The EAC agreement has been removed from the agenda. Next up is the teacher evaluation amended MOU rubric descriptions. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion, feedback? Who wants to fill us in?
So our teacher evaluation committee has been working for quite some time on this new teacher evaluation plan. The teacher evaluation committee consists of 5 administrators and 5 teachers, as nominated by our EME group. The recommendations we brought to you tonight are really around 2 classroom teacher descriptors, and they're just regarding really clarity around those descriptors. And then there are 4 non-classroom descriptors. And as an example, in those 4 non-classroom descriptors, several of those are inclusive now of the word families, whereas before it would say students and staff. Now it says students, families, and staff. So these are minor changes in the descriptors. We believe they were needed based on our conversation as a teacher evaluation committee, and they provide additional clarity in how folks can be observed and how feedback can be generated. EME has voted on and supports these changes, and administration is bringing them to the board for approval tonight.
Thank you, Randy. Questions or comments? Excellent. All those in favor of approving the teacher evaluation amended MOU regarding rubric descriptors, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next up, we have our substitute teacher rates. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. We did spend some time in the Human Resources Committee on them. Gwen, you want to provide the board a little input or feedback?
Sure. For the last couple of years, Edina, along with several other school districts, have been really challenged to find adequate number of substitutes for classrooms throughout the district. And in 2010, we increased the salary, the daily rate for substitutes, and we're requesting tonight to increase it again from $110 per day to $125 per day. We are hoping that that will entice some people to substitute in our district and on a regular basis. And as you can see, there are increases if you have been in the district for longer than 40 days, then you will receive an amount of $130 per day, and it moves up to $140 for retired Edina teachers. And we do have a number of teachers who are retired who do come back and substitute, but we do need a few more. And this is a 13% increase. We have a large budget for that is spent on substitutes, but we are going to really monitor this amount to make sure that we don't go over the allocation. And we have put some changes in place already to address some of the substitute challenges that we have. So I would entertain any questions.
Thank you, Gwen.
Do we have more need for substitutes? I mean, have we changed either with our PLCs or meetings that we need more, or is it just a lack of enough substitute teachers in the districts?
I would say it's a combination. One, that a few years ago we really had a shortage of, we had a plethora of teachers across the country, and that has really changed over the last few years. So that's one difference. And then the other difference is that in the teacher's contract, we do have workload relief days, and that has added to the need for additional substitutes as well, which is also a good use of time for the teachers to spend.
Gwen, how does the proposed rate align with other neighboring districts?
We checked with some of the other districts, and the others average about $115 to $120 per day.
Additional discussion or questions? Thanks, Gwen. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next up, we have our Facilities Task Force. Next Generation Facilities Task Force. This is for the approved charge and membership of the Next Generation's Facilities Task Force. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and second. Who wants to jump in here?
Susan's already gone through this.
Yeah, she's kind of gone through it
As
already.
stated earlier, the membership list is included with your board book for approval tonight.
Thank you. Questions, comments? All those in favor of approving the Next Generation Facilities Advisory Task Force, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next up, we have our last action item this evening, Policy 514, related to bullying prohibition. Can I get a motion, please?
So moved?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Policy 514, it's background information we've seen before. Any discussion or comments since we last saw this?
I would just say that the district's policy was in quite good shape with what occurred from the statute standpoint. There was only minor revisions that we really needed to take to make sure we met the criteria of the state statute. We've taken this work very seriously as a school district, and that's been reflected even in our student surveys. Our students do feel safe at their schools, but we still need to do more. And so we are being active in this work. We are in-servicing all staff during preschool workshop. This will be an annual event. We have training that goes on for students, but we're also helping students and staff understand that if there is this thought of bullying going on or an awareness that it is something that needs to be reported. We have our administration with an investigation process that is in place, and we will make sure that it is a safe learning environment for all students. There are some requirements around posting this, so we have new posters going up and information sharing going to the students and to the parents. This is all being completed, but again, important to our work, part of our core values as a school district.
Thank you, Rick. Additional comments? Questions on Policy 514? All those in favor of approving signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next up, we have a number of discussion items. We have district committees, and then we have schedule review of Policy 515 and our 700 series policy. Where do we want to start?
Well, I can just walk us down the district committees and councils. That board did have that attached in there as a walk-in item. We are finalizing membership to our various advisory and councils and teams. It's kind of in that transition phase, but we'll have that full list for the board to act on in September. We recognize the power of getting input from a variety of sources, so we work hard in getting that membership. From a policy standpoint, I can let the policy committee members jump in where they wish. We made some minor adjustments with our data privacy piece policy around protection and privacy of students, but one thing we're not including is...
What does it say for
Wait.
action?
No, we found a typo in the last one.
Oh, okay.
That's okay, yeah, sorry.
So, one thing we're not doing is we're not providing family emails as public data. We're staying, so that's not going to be part of data privacy is family emails to the public.
No, can clarify that. So we won't give out
We will
family?
not, Right, will not.
They
So,
will
and
not
that will
come from the
affect, I'm
district.
assuming PTOs who want it
So it'll be
included
the
in there.
same- Yeah, it'll be, yeah, and we've worked with the Parent Leadership Council on this and had their support as well through the process. But once you open it at all, you open it to all. And so the data privacy piece, we felt we wanted to honor. We also did some looking at where the state statute was on it, and it didn't, say that should be part of something that we include, and so we're staying in that conservative element on sharing that family data.
So then for PTOs who want to do some kind of a directory, if they were to engage in collecting the information completely on their own, is it legal for them to do that?
That's correct. I'll let Susan respond.
It is, they can certainly collect that on their own if it's voluntarily given by the parent. We're also working, Steve Buettner has also been working with a number of our PTO parents as it came out last year through the Parent Leadership Council, is there's some way that we don't have to recreate this every single year. And so there's some technology tools that allow that advancement of, say they, transition from elementary to middle school, because we hear it especially from our middle school and high school PTOs that it's hard to collect that information. So,
It is.
but it is, we've had numerous discussions at Parent Leadership Council about it, and while there's a lot of positive reasons why we should be allowing that, but as PTOs are an independent organization from the school district, they like any other outside organization, to include businesses, would have access to those email addresses, and felt that it was easier or better to err on the side of, do you really want parent email addresses given out to anybody who requests it? So.
Great, thanks.
Can I go back to the committees for a minute? So there used to be a board member on the Gifted District Advisory Committee, and that person's not listed anymore. So was there a change, or did we just miss it?
I got fired.
You got fired.
On the Gifted District Advisory Committee, there should be a board member on there, and I didn't see it unless I was going through this list.
I agree. There's supposed to be a board member.
There's
on it.
supposed to be a
We
board
agreed
member
that
there.
last year.
Yeah, so it was Leny, and then I was the alternate, so, okay.
We will follow up on that.
in the green?
This is-
And now the committees such as, like the community members who are on finance and facilities, that's listed on a different document,
That's
not on
correct.
this one?
That's on the one that the board approved earlier.
Right,
Yeah.
okay.
These are all
Just to
volunteer.
clarify, these are all the volunteer ones. Okay.
Volunteer.
Well, not that they're not volunteers,
Yeah,
but.
but they don't report to the board.
Excellent, thank you. I didn't know that.
We have the Series 700 policies, and there are 18 different policies that are going for first reading. Policy Committee has reviewed them, so has administration. They're all minor adjustments that are being pursued, just some grammatical, some minor updates, nothing of content, but we'll bring it back for a full reading to the board at the September meeting. And that would conclude the discussion items. But I'll answer any questions further.
Comments, questions? Anything that the policy committee wants to discuss?
I think I would be wondering if anybody has any questions they'd like policy to address on any of the policies under discussion. And as
There was
Rick
a lot
mentioned,
of them.
well, the 700 series, I want to extend a thanks to Sarah Shandel for taking the lion's share of the updated edits, which mostly bring it into alignment with the language of policy that we've been using. So there are minimal substantive changes in that.
Okay, that's what
But
I-
it's a large number, but what's here is not a lot of substantive change.
When reviewing them, I noticed that the red markings were at a minimum on most of them, so I was assuming that there were, when I see that, that's not
Right.
really substantive.
It's really mostly language, just for smoothness of reading. But if anybody has questions they'd like us to address at the next meeting, we're happy to take them back.
Were there any changes that affect the students at all in terms of the student records policy changes? Or was it, again, nothing of any substantive value?
Nothing of
Mostly
substance.
just
The
to
focus
update?
on Roman numeral 2, which is as in the paragraph, the definition has more clarity.
There was a lot of red on
Under
that
general
one.
statement of policy, I think that
That was an update.
This is an update, and that's where I'd say the heart of that policy hopefully reads more clearly, but if there are any questions that anyone would like us to take back before we bring it forward for action, we can certainly do that. Otherwise, as Susan mentioned, we did have a lot of discussion in policy as well about the impact of allowing more data to become public. And what you're seeing is less change rather than more. It's the policy as it has been used in the past.
Okay. So this is just all staying the same, pretty much. Okay, I just saw that big red paragraph and thought, what are we changing?
Which policy?
Page
Oh,
326,
717.
Yeah, 717.
717. Oh, yeah. Well, I noticed you used property there because that would include buses then, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
So that's the main.
That's the
That
big
means
change on
shift,
that
Yeah,
one, I'm
yeah,
assuming.
just be more inclusive.
Yep.
Okay.
But if there are questions, we can take them back.
I remember when the vending machines here, when I was on advisory council, had no sugar in them.
Anything we're missing?
All the candy bars, everything. And now it's all bad.
There's no questions? Sounds like we're done there on the information.
We have the Student Rights and Responsibilities Handbook for 14-15. It is now public. It's also been posted. We have some appendice revisions that have been included around student discipline, resident enrollment, and the bullying information. Those are all administrative clarifications, but they do align then with the handbook. And that would conclude the informational items for tonight.
Thank you. Any announcements, leadership update, committee reports?
Committee reports?
Finance and Facilities hasn't met in a while, but we'll be starting up again in October, actually, right? No, September, you're right, thank you.
September, just for your awareness, it's a Tuesday because of when we get the levy certification materials, and Linda should have gotten something out to you. If you don't have it, please let me know.
She sent the dates of the meetings. but
Dates
not-
of the
Yeah.
meetings,
Right,
yeah, not
materials,
agenda
but-
materials, too soon yet. We won't have that from MDE, but.
And you put them at, no, that's right, you don't do that, never mind.
Teaching and Learning Committee meets next week, Randy?
You mean on 21st?
27th.
Not the 21st? Well, it's policy. My
Policies
mistake.
meeting.
Policies meeting, early and often, but Teaching and Learning Ed is the 27th.
Okay.
You're right.
Any additional items? Committee reports? Anything? A motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Moving second to adjourn. Any objection to adjourning at this time?
Wow,
Seeing none, we are
8:20.
adjourned. Thank you all.